A hard drive is no way to archive that video project. All right, so here's the story. This is actually something out of Pro Video Coalition. I kind of like what these guys write often. I enjoy their reads. This one was really talking about the archive process, the process of taking video content after you've edited it and breaking it down to get it off your main hard drive. And they walk through a bunch of different ways that you can archive your projects. And I kind of like this because he breaks them down into cheap to perfect, with 5 steps in between, cheap being the scary way, perfect being sort of a hybrid of multiple options. And so, these are kind of cool. If you look through the kind of way, well, I guess let's take this back for a second. The reason why, why would you need to archive? Because for many of you, unless you're a YouTuber and this is your archive, and there is no editing to your project, you're going to want the original master files in case you go back to that project. He approaches this in the article, being that you're doing this as professionally for a customer, meaning you've edited and shot this project, and now you need to deliver back the customer the goods. And what are you going to do with those files? You have no reason to keep those files for the customer, so how are you going to archive those files for them? Let alone, do you want to turn that into an archive service for yourself? So let's just go through a couple of the methods, right? The cheap kind of scary way, which is don't do anything. Take the final output and archive that somewhere like YouTube. Yep, well, you lose all the original files in case you want to go back and edit. Just okay, only do the actual files that made it onto the timeline. Interesting. Good enough, which is ship me a hard drive and I'll put the files on there and ship it back to you. Better, send me 2 hard drives and I'll keep one and you keep the other. Now, I want to tackle this one just for a quick second because hard drives are fallible. They actually mention later in there that this being spinning disk because that is the cheapest and not SSD. Now, SSDs travel well, spinning disks do not, and oftentimes people don't choose the right spinning disk. There are several versions of spinners that actually remove the read-write head off the platter when they power down, meaning if it does bump, if it gets dropped or something, the little head isn't going to scratch up the drive and create a bunch of problems. And they don't really tackle that one. But they do say that is the cheapest way to pull it off. SSDs would be the better one, but far more expensive. Now, the big one, though, is LTO. They actually talk about archiving on LTO in here, and I think that's good. Our LTO is great, but the cost to get into LTO is not. It's a minimum $3,500 to $5,000 to get into an LTO platform. You could go rent one. You could, go that path. There are people who do that, and the tapes are relatively inexpensive, $65 to $75 for an 18 terabyte or 12 terabyte tape. So it is a great way to go if you can afford the barrier to entry, right, and get in the door. This is one of the arguments. And then they go perfect, which is a combination of LTO and other storage simultaneously. However, they even say that's rare. Now, the one thing that I was kind of disappointed in, they didn't touch until the very end of the article, was cloud. Right? And archiving on cloud. Now there is, archiving in cloud isn't that cheap actually, because you have to imagine you're paying yearly for the cost of that data. And if this is for a customer, not for yourself, you may not want to pay yearly for that data, which cloud does charge you. They're going to charge you for every week, every month, every day, every hour that they're holding your data. However, there is a version of cloud that most people don't know, and that is LTO in the cloud. If it's Amazon, it's actually called Glacier. Glacier is basically, once you get that file up in Amazon, they'll move it to an LTO drive for you and they'll store that LTO drive. And the cost of that goes down dramatically to use their LTO versus you buying the LTO system. So it is actually a pretty decent one. However, the gotcha, because it's the cloud, there's always a gotcha. The gotcha in the cloud is when you want the file back, it's going to cost you. And it costs you based on the speed at which you want the file back. You want it back tomorrow, that's going to be both an arm and 2 legs. If you're willing to wait a day or 3 or 4, even a week, that would only be 1 leg and 1 arm. If you're willing to wait a month, that could only be an arm. Ideally, it's because there are bigger clients than you that are asking for data returns, and there's only so many drives to pull back from. So it's a bit of an interesting story, but I do like the fact that they broke down all the different ways you could archive. I just wish they would have gone a little deeper into cloud. All right, this has been another Techsplanation with me, your host, Nick Smith. If you want more, smash the like button and or subscribe to our channel so that you can get notifications when we pop up new episodes of Techsplanation. Talk soon.